Well, a key finding is that, in a communal violence incident, you always have two dimensions. One is what the state government has done or the state administration has done or not done, and who were the people behind the violence. In this case, it was very, very clearly the people behind the violence was the BJP and the RSS, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, along with some kind of strange kind of support from the BKU, the Kisan Union. But and on the other side was the Samajwadi state government, which had just not done what any government should do in the areas of preventing the violence, in controlling the violence, in rehabilitating the displaced persons, and in ensuring that there was justice. There's nothing, there has been no visible, even we went about a week after the violence had broken out, there was no evidence anywhere in the camps that there is a state and there is a state machinery that cares. We found, apart from the number of dead, which we put because of the civil hospital figures, etc., at 43, 45, but that of course the government can always come out with the proper figures. But we believe that over 50,000 people have been displaced. They fled the villages in complete fear because they were attacked from the day of 6th of September till the 9th of September. Village after village after village was attacked in the day and in the night. And you had people armed with lathis, with guns, with broken glass, swords and daggers, attacking mostly the Muslim tenements. And these people ran for their lives bare feet, leaving everything behind. And what we have noticed this time, which is something which it hasn't happened in most of the violence. One is that it went from the cities into the town, into the villages, which is huge, because usually the villages are the ones that keep secularism alive because everybody knows each other. Secondly, the neighbor attacked the neighbor. So the mobs didn't come from outside. It was the villagers who were incited and provoked to attack. So that has a very traumatic impact. And third, the idea of the people who were organizing the violence this time was not to kill in large numbers, but to displace, in what we call ethnic cleansing. And once the Muslims ran, their houses were plundered, looted and burnt. So everywhere we went, the Muslim refugees now, they said, we are not going back. They're so terrified. They said, because our neighbors attacked us, they can attack us again. And two, we have nowhere to go back to. So this was the most frightening aspect of this violence. These politicians, I wish the politicians were going there as a team bringing succor, as it were, to the people. What they are going over there is to blame each other. You had Rajnath Singh saying Samajwadi is doing it, so and so saying somebody else is doing it. They are going to be sending their fact-finding teams saying our MPs and our MLAs are not involved, for all the hate speeches at the Mahapanchayats. So this is not really the answer. Right now the people need, the camps that have come up. There's no camp out of the 41 odd camps that were set up by the state government. The people ran, and they either found shelter in some kasbah, in somebody's house, in a madrasa, in mosque, or wherever they could find some open space. So 3,000, 4,000 people are living in a tract of land. It's filthy around it. Wherever we visited, and this is again 7-8 days after, where there was not a single policeman, not a single state government official, no protection, no doctor, no food supplies, no milk for the little children who have run, pregnant women, all just crowded together, no blankets, no clothing, because they all ran without their clothes. They ran without their slippers in many cases. No effort to bring supplies to them. The district magistrate says, oh, we have just started, we are sending it, which we think is a lie because we didn't see it. There were no utensils, there was no food coming. What we saw on the roads whenever we moved towards a relief camp were a lot of trucks from community people who were taking, whatever they had collected from other villages, they were bringing to the camps. There was not one government vehicle that we saw, not one police patrol that we saw. We covered around that whole area, maybe 60-70 kilometers of traveling, not one police picket that we saw. I mean, what is the state government doing? Nothing. You see, the thing is, sometimes when you play a game, and you play a game with a more lethal and a more vicious force, you lose. They played a game. A little bit of violence here, a little bit of violence there. Okay, we consolidate the Muslim, you consolidate the Hindu. Now, this is not part of our fact finding. This is my assessment of after covering communal violence for 30 years and having been a part of the UP entire political milieu. They had all this, and the DM said a very strange thing to us. He said, we thought that we knew that there would be violence in Muzaffarnagar, but we didn't think it would spread. So that means till the towns and all this little bit of violence you were quite happy, because then you could come in as the Samajwadi Party and say, well, here we are, Muslims, look at us. This time the BJP went full hog and it just went into the villages. And now it has completely destroyed the people's confidence in the Samajwadi Party, completely. I think it's very surprising that the person who is in charge wearing a uniform is making political statements. And I could have understood the political statements had he done what he was supposed to do. His police were the biggest failure. Whether it's ADG, DGP, IG, whatever, SHOs, complete and total failure of the police. And that is something that he should have been ordering a probe into why his district police failed to protect the people. And in some cases, there are instances where they sided with the mobs by just not doing anything to stop them. So instead of saying that he was given this instruction or that instruction, he is still the police officer, his men on the job are still policemen, and they should have protected the people. So I think the failure has been colossal, and part of it is part of the conspiracy, and part of it is inefficiency, and part of it is very, very deliberate. No, but the point is that this created a lot of hatred. There was this video that this Sardana fellow took, this fake video 2 years ago. Now this brings me to another point, which is what we were asking the Samajwadi people, that you're going on talking about the BJP. Why is it that you haven't arrested one single person who's named in the FIR of the BJP? And you have documentary evidence that they stood over there, they provoked, they incited, they told the mobs to attack, they even led the mobs. Why are those people not arrested? They're coming on television with interviews, and how is it that you don't know where they are? Now, if that is not a conspiracy, then what is? And where is your state government? If you cannot arrest them, you should resign and let President's rule come in. Well, I'm glad they failed. Because these Muslim organizations are now very weak. They used to be very strong in the 70s and all. So now they're very weak and they're not in a position to do anything and consolidate. But it's good that they keep out. What I am bothered about is where is the so-called secular India, which talks, and the political parties which talk about being anti-BJP and anti-communalism, where are they? This has happened under the watch of Mulayam Singh Yadav, who says he's the biggest messiah for the Muslims, and he cannot do, he talks about them at every turn of the breath, but this is all rhetoric. Now that hundreds and thousands have been displaced, they haven't even, okay, you didn't prevent the violence. You say we didn't know, which is a lie, because everybody in the district knew this was going to happen. You didn't control, because you have a police force which is completely inept, and obviously the directions from Lucknow were not strong enough. So you failed there. But even if you give you the benefit of the doubt there, what about the rehabilitation now? What about the fact that thousands of Muslims are gathering and just living in slum conditions without sanitation, without anything? What about them? Where are you now? You're not there again. And Akhilesh Yadav goes when he hears that the Prime Minister is coming. Otherwise, he might not have gone till now. Well, she did one thing which which was very interesting, which is what the local people told us. We've sort of mentioned in the report, but independently we have to verify it. But it's something which everyone there was saying, that she had ensured that the SHO should not be from the same village or area or the district. So all the SHOs were from different districts. And when Mulayam Singh, Akhilesh Yadav government came, they reversed the decision. Which is why the SHOs were almost part of the panchayats, because they were from the same area. Now that's terrible. See, you know, this appeasement, I have to say this, having worked in the field, that appeasement is a very BJP term, and it is a term that is used by the media without even having any understanding of what the word means. This is not appeasement. Appeasement is what? If I go and I do something for a community which is proven to be backward, where the social indicators are putting them at the level of Dalits, how is that appeasement? What is the problem is not appeasement or doing. The problem with the Samajwadi is it is only indulging in rhetoric. It is sitting with the Maulanas, just like now Narendra Modi is sitting with the Maulanas, putting skull caps on everybody and saying you should look like a Muslim. And they're all sitting in they're sitting, you know, so I think that it's the rhetoric, it's the lies, it's the promises that you do not fulfill, where you talk about being somebody who's favorable to the minorities, but you do nothing in concrete terms to uplift them. And that is the problem. That is the real problem. Appeasement is a dead word. I mean, appeasement is what Narendra Modi is doing. You know, what the BJP is doing right now is appeasement, where you're making all these flowery gestures. You're insisting that the Muslim be identified as a Muslim. You're saying that like a bunch of retards, they should sit right in the front so that everybody can see with the skull caps. And most of the Muslims don't wear skull caps. When they wear it, they go for the namaz. It's because you can tie a hanky. So, you know, and you are doing this appeasement. Is RSS and the BJP doing appeasement? Where else is the appeasement? The rest is exploitation and victimization. You know, the whole idea of the BJP is to the target this Amit Shah who's gone there. He did in Gujarat, he's trying to do the same thing here, and I must say for them, because the rest of the forces in the political parties are so inept and so callous and so, you know, out of touch, that they are succeeding. But what they're trying to do is basically they're targeting UP and Bihar, and they're doing it in the manner that they know, by creating violence. This is RSS tactics right from 1947 onwards. The same RSS that killed Gandhi, which I don't understand that how we forget that very important fact. And then they're now, for them, what are the common man? I mean, they could go and kill the hero of this country, who was a very, very tall figure. How does it matter some collateral damage and a few poor people butchered? It doesn't really matter to them, as long as they get 40-50 seats out of UP and another number of seats from Bihar, on the basis of dividing the population, generating hate and making Muslims versus Hindus and destroying the secular fabric of this country. And the tragedy is that there are people in this country outside the BJP and the RSS, some of them, and particularly the sections of this media, which believes that this is the way to go. I mean, I'm amazed at journalists today, and I'm amazed and completely shocked at this media, which is completely ignorant and illiterate, that really believes that this is the way to go and this will bring you development. Where in this country and where in this world have you got development through fascism? It has only destroyed nations. And of course, fascists have died an ugly death also, but not before they create havoc in a nation. And it's the media that is supporting them, without thinking and without realizing that this bloodshed is completely tearing apart the Constitution of India. It is, and no fascists will come, you know, and respect the Constitution of India. The RSS ideology, if they manage to read anything that Golwalkar or Savarkar or anybody has written, they don't respect the Indian Constitution. They have their own constitution. The only reason why they're not being able to write it is because they haven't come with a brute majority in parliament as yet. And they come in a coalition structure and they don't have the strength to do it. But for people, if they think that those proponents of a Hindu Rashtra are going to come into power and get the brute majority, and they're going to leave the Constitution of India alone and just take the country towards development, they're very, very wrong. That's not going to happen.
Something like Narendra Modi, who has everything, he has to speak on everything, economy, Manmohan Singh, on Pakistan. But
what did he say about Muzaffarnagar?
Absolutely, he didn't utter a single word.
What does he say about women when they are raped? He says something, but what did he say when he was asked by the Wall Street Journal on malnutrition? He said, oh, women diet and they want to look beautiful. That's his explanation for malnutrition, which is affecting most of our women and children today.
And no one
so these kind of ideologies do not have a space for women. And women are only seen as agents to propagate a particular ideology. They are not seen as human beings in the Hindutva ideology or any religious extremist ideology where they're individuals who have rights and freedoms and who can breathe. They're made to be subjugated, like Sadhvi Ritambara, Uma Bharati, or that Maya Ben, where they distribute weapons to mobs, where incite violence, where they follow the militaristic ideology of that ideology, but are not recognized as women with rights and true freedoms. No, it's not normalizing. There were 3 incidents in Muradabad, Eta yesterday, but they were, because now they are little alert, so they clamped down on them. So there were 3 incidents already. It's a tinderbox. It's not subsiding. Not subsiding. It's a lull. It's not subsiding. How can it subside when I'm sorry. How can it subside when thousands of people are in camps? And by the way, when we went into the villages, the Jats had also run. It was like a ghost villages, like scary. There was nobody there. Huge village, Kutba, one of them. Nobody there. Because the Jats had feared, the Pradhan had run away because he was fearing arrest. The Muslims had been purged, they were all out. There were just some old women and men in that village. And the Safai Karamcharis cleaning. And I said, why are they cleaning? I mean, this is a village with nobody, and how come there are hundreds of scores of these people cleaning? And I said, must be Akhilesh Yadav or some VIP visit. And later we got to know, yes. Yeah. And they were cleaning a ghost village, just in case he decided to go there. Yeah, but even now, what are they reporting? They're not being able to understand what's going on. If they meet a few Muslims, they give you that story. Or if they go over there, they pick up a rumor and they tell you. They say that it was a girl who was being teased. Then of course it came out the girl said, I wasn't being teased. Then the story, the narrative that seems to be emerging is that these two boys had a fight because they collided with each other. The truth only is that 3 were lying dead at the end of it. How it started, we don't know. But then the point is that when you have this very, this fixation with how it started, we didn't spend too much time on that, because when you have this terrible communal environment which you've already created through hate and lies and rumors, so and so dead, so and so there, they're coming to take your women, they attack your women, and this whole Bahu thing and the love jihad, all this that they started, in that you and I can have an altercation, it'll have a fight if you are from 2 different communities. I mean, I've covered so much of violence in Meerut, Malyana, this, that. When the violence breaks, the trigger can be, just 2 people walking on the road and one nudges the other and there's a fight. And because there already is a problem, the whole thing spreads. I remember Aligarh was completely finished over what? The incident was a row over biryani. Because there was some food being thing, and the customer who was a Hindu said there was not enough meat, and the Muslim said there is enough, or whatever, and the whole place went up. But that was not the incident. Before that, there were days and weeks of rumors generating hatred and suspicion and trust. And then the person, because there's no counter-offensive, because the state has not come with a counter-propaganda, it is not running vehicles saying, don't listen, this is not true, this is not true. You have people not knowing what to believe. So they believe when you tell them that in another village somebody was attacked, but it actually didn't happen. But they believe it. So then they go and attack. So people become innocent victims. It's not that the Jats are communal. It is not that the Muslims are communal. They are just the innocent players of a design set up by very, very devilish people. Jat and the Muslim in Western UP was working very well together. It was a vote that stayed together. It voted for the Congress in the first years, it has voted for the Janata Dal, it has voted for Ajit Singh, it has voted for Mulayam Singh, it has voted for BSP as part of a combine. There was a certain camaraderie that had developed between them and a political, a unanimity. And that they have fractured. How dangerous is that, tell me?
True.
These people who call everyone else anti-national are basically themselves the anti-nationalists for creating this division amongst the people who are living in villages in complete harmony. So they'll pull out, these guys will go wherever, but in the villages, what are these people going to do?